future, talk radio will actually educate, inspire, and make you think. The future is now. Topics and music that affect your life from Universal Broadcasting Network. Tune in at ubnradio.com.
Welcome to Richard Listens, live here at the UBN Radio TV studios at the beautiful Sunset Gower Studios in the incredible Hollywood, California, in the amazing Los Angeles, California, in the excellent state of California. And I'm the host of the show, Peter Sobey. And now I would like to introduce the namesake of the show. It's called Richard Listens because a psychologist at the heart of their business listens. And our main man, psychologist, sports psychologist extraordinaire, Dr. Richard Olberger.
Yes. Thank you, Peter. Glad to be here. Happy to be here. Excited to have our guest tonight. And it's ironic that after we name the show, I start speaking. But hey, you know,
right.
We can't just sit and listen all the time. Even the best of us, we really need to let it out.
But you did need to listen to me to know how to respond. So, but you are right. The show kind of should be called Richard Speaks because in your profession you listen, but here you're speaking.
That's right. Variety of roles, or you could say he listens to speak, but yeah, exactly. We're listening, but you know, while you're listening, you're also picking up a lot of things that are really important to others, the people you encounter, the clients that I'm fortunate enough to treat, and people we get to coach and motivate, and the things we observe, especially in a powerful week, which we just experienced with the election and everything. So, and in the process, it brings up a lot of things within us from those observations and those experiences. So glad to have this forum to get the conversation continued.
Yeah, totally. You know, and we don't bring this up every show, but I do like to talk about time and again that the reason you did this show is because since you've been a psychologist now practicing since 2003, over 13 years, you want to share some of that wisdom with folks.
That's right. I get to experience people with such unique and rich lives. I'm continually, blown away with the resourcefulness, the resilience of people, and obviously I can't name names, but it's great to be able to educate people and to share even my own experience that are inspired by the work I do and the people I meet.
And we will be getting to our guests in just a couple minutes. It's very exciting. It's going to be a fun show. But you did touch on the fact that this has been an interesting week, and I touched on it a little bit in my opening with my grandeur to California and how excellent I think the people of California are. But what was the week like for you as a psychologist? Because there are people that experience highs this week and a lot of people that experience extreme lows this week. How did the week go for you?
Well, first let me say there's no mystery. Sometimes the magazines and things that we pick up, I've found it really amazing the experience I was having, being in session with people as the election was going on, seeing other psychologists posts on psychology listservs saying, oh my God, how do I go in there? How do I be present? Like everyone was kind of coming off the rails, even to come home to my own home and see different reactions amongst the kids and feeling of, I guess, loss of control or shock. And it was really quite strange to be a part of that and to be absorbing all of that. Had a tough time, that I just had to use some of the tools that I work with clients to really be aware of, wow, there's something happening here. It's profound, and the emotions aren't going to be real clear really quick. Right.
What kind of advice would you give people that were feeling the lows of the week? I was one of them.
Well, thankfully, I did write a blog a little bit about how to process this on the Richard Listens page. But
yes, that's right. People can go to richardlistens.com and check out your blog, or it's also on Richard Listens at facebook.com, Richard Listens.
That's right.
Where we are broadcasting live right now. So
that's it. Please,
if you check in and leave a comment, we might just mention you on the air. But
Yeah.
please go on. You wrote a blog.
So enough for the self-aggrandizement. It's difficult because I first want to make the disclaimer that no matter what advice you give, depending on somebody's particular sensitivity or and the way they're affected by, if they were influenced negatively by some of the comments and things, and maybe some of the hate speech was out there, that they're not going to take likely to kind of dropping their guard right now. And when you feel like you're under attack emotionally, when you're being threatened, some people much more than emotionally, they feel it's a real likelihood that their safety could be threatened. It's going to be very hard to use coping skills, and I'm glad that people are mobilizing that energy, if it's into protest, if it's into awareness and connection with family or other activist groups, or even just to get their mind around how do they want to express themselves in a positive way to respond to, even if it's feelings of outrage. So, with that being said, for the most part, I really want people to, there can be this tendency to just watch the election footage over and over and replay some of these things and get, very absorbed in it. It's important when anything stressful is going on or overwhelming to disconnect a little bit, to take some time to ground yourself in what you love, whether it's going to a fine place like studio or taking a walk or spending time with family members, and slowing down your internal dialogue and process and disconnecting if need be. So there's both the connection part to some healthy things and the grounding yourself in maybe something simple and small and parasympathetic. Whenever something feels larger and out of control, we got to kind of grasp and just remember we got to take this day to day and reorient ourselves to the new reality of what is and what we can control. So those are some of the things I've kind of been working on with people, and if that means some breathing exercises to slow things down, or visualization to help them really get clear on their goals and their unique position to express what they do have to say based on whether they're a woman who feels outraged or a member of a minority group or whatever it may be. Or if you're a member of the party that won and you want to show that's that you're going to create this positive change. It's really an opportunity.
Right. That's some great advice, really, seriously. And we got really somber and stuff, but that's the kind of week it was, and that's some really great advice. So and people can go to the Facebook page or the Richard Listens website and read your blog and get a little bit more insights on that.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you pointed out. It's somber in that some people were shocked and overwhelmed, but it also can be quite exciting. Anytime there's conflict, there's dialogue. There's going to be a lot of the people that felt represented by, the fact that everything was so close and so narrow shows there's two very large contingencies with, slightly different opinions. So hopefully it brings everyone out and into dialogue and into interaction and learning how to live and help each other a little bit better.
And I've been seeing way more dialogue than I ever have ever.
Yeah, that's the most, we're not here to do election coverage, but that's the most amazing thing is that people really realized that they were in their own little bubble. They were having a discussion, but they weren't really getting out of who they normally talk to. And that's a big thing for creating change, is getting out of your comfort zone. So I hope we take that away from tonight.
Yes. And because we are a show that focuses on sports psychology and motivation and inspiration, and speaking about getting out of your comfort zone, that's going to be the perfect segue into our guest, because recently you did kind of a life-changing thing, getting out of your comfort zone, which led you to meeting our guest. So how about a little preface about that with an introduction for tonight's guest, Dr. Richard?
Yes, thank you. Well, yes, it's I get emotional every time you say that. I mean, it's been a journey over 18 months, and it's funny how each stage, now I look back kind of regrettably, that I was doing a certain level of change, but there was a comfort zone there. And thankfully, one of our former guests, David Bannock, introduced me to the new concept of the studio, kind of a place that's really training you to be in an athletic mindset. And
the studio gym.
Studio, yes, STUDEO.
But the gym you're talking about.
Yes.
Okay.
And they have a unique, I don't know, maybe there's a whole model out there of CrossFit type gyms, but for me, to go anywhere and to be trusted on my stage of growth, which had to involve emotional happiness, social connection, psychological support. Like there had to be all these qualities. And so I really, when you go in with any belief that, well, I'm not probably going to find that, so why even search for it? So it's pretty funny, and that we go in with that mentality, even though we say we want change, and that's coming from a psychologist, that sometimes we're our own worst enemy on our journey, in this case for athletic performance and fitness. So I'm thankful for, I didn't even know that David Bannock, the level of modest guy, was a coach and a trainer. And, early on, he introduced me to Mr. Garrison. And again, the humility, the humbleness with which you're embraced, and in which they really helped me discover my athletic performance, where they really help you identify, if you want to identify as a basketball player, well, we're going to help you realize that. And we're going to help you do exercises that basketball players do. And you're going to see yourself moving and improving as a basketball player, and conceptually what that must do, for your identity, and that you're always kind of, we talk in somatic experiencing about parasympathetic versus sympathetic. It taps into that part of you, which is like, yes, this is who I am. This is my core, and I'm defining it and building it, building my identity, becoming stronger. And the need for that resource when, there's so many other stresses and challenges going on, it's just a gift. So without further ado, I want to introduce tremendous coach, tremendous talent, hopefully soon be teammate of mine in the rec basketball league, if I can, get his contract terms met. And I'm excited. He's wonderful with, people young and old, and hopefully soon to be star Ninja Warrior, Mr. Garrison Reese.
Thank you.
Welcome to the show, Garrison.
Wait for your applause, Garrison. We got to go to the pregame intro.
So this is great. So Garrison is a coach trainer at Studio Gym in Beverly Hills, and you are also you were involved in a development basketball league, correct? That's kind of like the...
Well, now what I'm doing is I'm just preparing to play with Rich in the Beverly Hills League right now.
Right.
It's, all recreational basketball at the moment. But I did play ball in college. And like Rich, man, I just want to find that mojo again, get people out there, get people working hard. And it's all about helping people find their best. And I think that's where Studio differs from other gyms.
Go ahead and bring the mic closer to your face so you don't have to lean into it. Yeah, there you go.
So the Studio, I understand, came and sought you out. They found you in some way.
Yeah, I mean, I had my resume posted on Indeed, and I saw a job posting for a studio that sounded like something that I wanted to do. I mean, it was different from my previous job experiences. I was a trainer at 24 Hour Fitness for 3 years, and granted, there was their team aspect. It was still a dog-eat-dog world. Every trainer was for themselves. There was no community aspects. And I found Studio, and I saw that they were about getting people's mojos back and training people in an athletic fashion and about the community. And within 2 weeks of me moving to LA, I was working, so it worked out perfectly for me.
Wow, that's amazing. So how long have you been at Studio Gym now?
I have been with Studio since January.
Wow, okay. So you're going on your 1-year anniversary.
Yeah, it's coming fast, man. It's been a fast year.
So we are going to get into, I do want to talk more about basketball and what that meant to you in college and where you went from there.
Okay.
We're going to talk about Studio Gym and your training and coaching. And we are going to get into the American Ninja experience forthcoming. And I do want to say that later in the show, we are going to be featuring our feature we do every Richard Listens show, which is the Richard Listens list of 3. And I'm just going to tease it right now because I think we have a really special Richard Listens list of 3 this week. And you're going to definitely want to stick around for it. It's going to be toward the end of the show. But I do promise that it will be very inspirational and motivational, and that you are going to want to be around for the Richard Listens list of 3 for some motivation and inspiration. So as we get started here, I find it really interesting that I'm sitting across from a fitness trainer and a psychologist. So kind of like I'm sitting across from someone who is, mind you, I'm sure that you're you're concerned for people's well-being of mind as well, but a fitness expert and a head expert. And that really fascinates me, and I'm sure it fascinates a lot of the audience, like that juxtaposition. The first thing I'm going to actually ask both of you, even though it's your show, Richard, but what I want to know is, and I've been curious about this a lot, and I know people out there are really curious. When you're a psychologist, when you're a fitness trainer, you see many clients a day and many, many, many clients a week.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to give it to you first, Garrison. On a daily basis, you see what? Anywhere between like 4 and 10 clients?
I would say so. That sounds about right.
So how do you stay motivated and focused with each client? Because I'm sure you want to make each client feel like they're the only client in the world and the best client in the world. But how do you do that when you see so many people a day? How do you stay focused?
Honestly, what keeps me going is knowing that I am changing someone's life for the better. I know that within that hour that I'm with that person, that they're getting a sense of accomplishment. This is the best start to their day, and they're actually making a positive change on their life. A lot of these clients have goals that they like to meet, and the fact that I'm helping them reach these goals, it sits well with me, and that's what keeps me fueled and keeps me going.
That's great. And then don't you ever get tired, though, training all day yourself? Because you are kind of like going through a lot of it, right, physically?
Yeah, I am. It is. It can be physically taxing, but in that moment, like I said, I'm so wrapped up in it, whether it's the person or the workout, that I don't even realize how tired I am until the end of the day when I'm completely drained. But now I'm used to it, and honestly, that's how I should feel. I should feel like I gave my everything to all of my clients by the end of the day.
That's amazing.
Now, where did you start noticing that? Did you notice that athleticism in yourself early? Did you have a motivator that helped you realize, the power of coaching and training? Or
my dad was my first coach, and he coached me all the way through high school, actually. In the middle of the night, he would have me tell me if I couldn't stay asleep to get up and do 20 push-ups. And I would ask him why, and he was like, well, I mean, somebody isn't. If you want to get ahead, this is the time to do it. And just hearing things like that and seeing the growth that I made inspired me to help other people grow. I think that's what got me into personal training, aside from it being an easy transition after being an athlete, was just personal growth and helping everybody grow and find their best.
yeah.
So what about you, Dr. Richard? You see anywhere between 4 and 10 people a day?
Not
10's a
quite 10,
lot.
Not quite 10. I try and keep it under 8.
But that's mentally taxing. So how do you keep motivated and focused from client to client?
Well, I'm trying to find my balance. I do think there's a certain amount of learning about yourself in this work. Being a typical Sagittarian, I may have to mix up different types of work. In an ideal world, we'd be dealing with, maybe a little bit of couples work here and a little bit of individual. It's balanced out, but it doesn't always happen that way, especially in events like the last week where collectively people are going through stuff. But I'd like to think that there's a piece of the collective unconscious. There are people I meet, there are stories where you're like, I'm so thankful this person came to me. I mean, the clients are bringing gifts. The clients have experiences which are just, other than saying it's parasympathetic, it's like so exciting to like I'm enriched by learning about their stories. I'm excited to know about who they are. And I'm thankful that they're letting me help them maybe with a way in which things were processed or, unfortunately a way in which things may have gotten stuck for them along the way. But I'd like to see that it's kind of a collective experience now that I'm a part of their journey and I'm a part of their story. It's a unique place to be. There aren't many people that they are letting see that side of their life and to see the chronology,
Right.
to see their development, to see those strengths come out, to see those victories. Or even when there's interpersonally, when early on, so I have some clients where the first conversation was kind of like, well, they look at my cover and things I've done and they say, you know what, I don't think you can help me.
Wow.
And it's almost a great conversation to have because it's like, well, let me prove it to you. And so when you can overcome that hump together, not that you can help everybody and not that I'm the best person for everyone out there, or that my approach is ideal for everybody, but so there are those moments where you walk out even when I worked on Skid Row and I still went to see clients from 6 to 9 at night, I'd get energized after coming completely flatlined to the office. I'd get energized by my clients in the evening. I'd almost get a second win because I was like, this is where my purpose is. This is where the people that I'm really helping is. I'm almost excited. So I think it's about, getting into the story and when you feel like there's growth there.
Now, what about this kind of question will go to both of you, but you first, Dr. Richard, since you were just talking. What about if you're having a bad day? How do you kind of channel that away and focus on your client's needs?
There's different schools of thought on that. Some people are like, you're a professional and you shouldn't let it in. And I've even looked over to these guys, these coaches, and I've been like, whoa, how do they do it? Because they have to be so vocal and so motivating. Most of the time, on most days, my job is to listen and be present. So containing what may be going on inside of you. And at times we're not even aware of what's going on because it can be triggered about recent events or about what your client is talking about. We're human beings and we're going to process what's going on in front of us.
Right. And I think it's just an important thing because even though I'm asking you as a psychologist and you as a fitness trainer, Garrison, people can use this advice you're giving for anything, like at their work, at home. How do you come home to your family? You've had a bad day, but you want to give all to your family. How do you go to work and you've had a bad day?
Yeah, well, I try and, the best I can practice what I preach, which is, since I've gone on this somatic psychology journey, learning about my body needs to move, so if I can't get a trip into the gym that day, maybe it's just a walk around the block and a look at the trees. Maybe it's just noticing that my blood is still flowing in my legs, that I'm breathing. It can really be a slow. Sometimes you forget to breathe. So sometimes just forcing myself to start walking down the stairs feels like a jump start to get out of the head and get out of some place of being emotionally anxious or stuck.
Interesting.
And listen, we're human beings too. I have colleagues that I can consult on once a week to kind of go in and process maybe some of the heavier client load and, outlets. The power of having a gym or a place where you can scream it out or really let go of the stress.
Right.
And allow yourself to release so that you can be present for the next person. It's a constant kind of holding and releasing. So for, the colleagues out there, trainers, therapists that are just kind of holding on for years, and they may notice it show up. For me, it showed up in my body. My lower back is often a trigger of, hey, your container is full. For other people, they may notice a little irritability or cutting off from family or not being able to engage after a tough day. So those are natural reactions, but I'd like to think we can learn to be better by giving ourselves kind of the reward we need for our tank.
Totally. How about you, Garrison? Like if you're having a bad day, how do you stay focused? And because you really have to motivate your clients.
Right. For me, it's honestly, it's as simple as kind of checking my ego at the door. I know when I walk into the gym that within the next hour, I have somebody else's life in my hands, and I know that I need to give them 100% if I expect 100% from them. And that's just my driving force. Like I said earlier, knowing that I'm making a positive impact on somebody's life or making their day that much better. And in every session, I make it my job to make your day better, to make that hour the best hour out of your day, even though your day's just started. You have a whole nother 15 hours to go after you see me. But I'd like to think that I'm the one that got your day off to the right start.
I like that. And you're making this hour better already.
See? Perfect.
That's good
That's
stuff.
what I'm here for.
Well, I got to say, what I learned from Garrison and some of the their camaraderie, their playfulness with each other. They got 5 minutes between a class. Sometimes they hop in the class, first of all, which is great, and they're challenging each other. Garrison threw on a 20-pound vest the other day. It's like they're not afraid to push themselves and look a little silly.
Yeah,
And that power of laughter is like de-stresses the whole environment, I think, because you're modeling play. So it's a safe place. It's a place where you're like, yeah, they're all in it, working and hustling, like you said, but they're not competing. In that moment, they're competing athletically. They are saying, I'll run one more lap than you. They are pushing each other to stay in line with that that athlete. So that they're not afraid to show that.
It sounds like a great atmosphere. And so, Garrison, you get a new client like Richard that came in a few months ago.
Right.
And, here's a guy that's got an athletic background. He played basketball and all that, but now he's a professional man. And, he's kind of like a layman. He's not an athlete per se, even though you're very athletic. What's your approach to the people that come in that are like, they can't, they're not going to work on a American Ninja level right away.
Right.
So, like, how do you approach, like, when someone like Richard walks in the door? Like, what are your techniques to motivate them and to start training them?
Well, I mean, with Richard, it's all about finding what fuels you, about finding what gave you your mojo. I knew with Richard, it was basketball. I knew he wanted to be that athlete that he was years ago, and I was determined to get him there. And so whether it's drills, the class like the drill where we're working on his speed and agility, or you may have a woman who wants to do a pull-up for the first time in her life. Again, it's those steps that we take towards making them better and achieving that goal that makes that hour worth it. And
so you'll just tailor. You must have like a gazillion different exercises in your back pocket, and you'll start tailoring things to.
Oh yeah. I like
to what their goal is.
I like to say I have a tool to fix anything in my toolkit. And from my personal experience, I mean, aside from basketball, I've played football, baseball. I've spent time in martial arts, so I know what it's like to have a fresh start and to set a goal and try to achieve it. And I'm just here to help people get there.
Now, what about the person that says, like, okay, Garrison, you work at, fancy studio gym in Beverly Hills and Vancouver, and it's this great boutique fitness center, but what if it's like, oh, I can't afford a gym, and granted, there are less expensive places out there.
True.
But that being said, I'm not here to non-advertise studio gym or advertise other places, but speak to the person out there that absolutely positively can't afford a gym. What advice do you give them to motivate and to do some fitness themselves around their home or in their neighborhood? What do you tell that person?
Well, you just said it. There are a million different exercises you can do at home. A lot of people feel like if they can't get to a gym that they can't work out, which isn't true at all. So my first step with people is just get outside. Like you mentioned earlier, you want to get people out of their comfort zone and getting people to understand that going outside of the comfort zone is where you really see your results.
So you're basically saying, like, at least get outside and start walking.
Yeah, get outside and walk, or go to your local high school and run around the track. Anything aside from sitting on the couch and flipping through TV channels to get you in better shape.
Right. And now, Richard, you knew David before going to studio gyms, but what was your experience walking in there for the first time?
Well, initially there's resistance. It's like, well, who are these people, and how are they going to help me? And they don't know me, and so initially it was a little bit of a shock, I think, and yeah, just resistance. So and how is another gym experience going to get me to where I wanted to get, which was the Maccabi basketball tryout? Like, how is this tied to basketball? Because It was always this separate compartmentalized thing. You go to the weight room or you play on the court. And, it's kind of silly now that I think about it. And even from getting to watch some of ESPN's Undrafted, they got some of the same drills we're doing in studio. This is what people are doing when they're going for their NFL tryout. Because to be able to even try out, to get to that level where you're in front of people and saying, I can complete every single move with confidence. I just maybe Tony can throw it up later. I got Bob Rutella's book on, I think it's Win Like a Champion or something. He's talking about golfers, and putts, and the time that you need to spend practicing and setting up your putt and really walking through the conditions, what it would be like on the 16th hole of the Masters or things like that. That you, in a way, we need that. We otherwise what starts to happen, right? We feel we're behind, we start to press, like all kinds of psychological anxiety and things like that can come in. So
what's the name of that book?
Is it Win Like a Champion? Or
What's the name of the author?
Bob Rotella, Rotella, one of the modern day giants of sports psychology. Yeah.
But anyway,
We'll get that
yes.
later. Anyway, so I digress as usual. But, the point is that in a way it's good for me to have that initial distrust because, here was Dave coming to me, and Dave did soccer, but he was saying, hey, he's coming from a different perspective. He's saying, I've excelled at something. I've been at the top of something, but let us get you there. Let us get you using let us help you discover your inner athletic intelligence. And at times, those words, they fall kind of on deaf ears because if you don't feel like, I'm working out and I'm staying in shape and I'm losing weight, but if you don't feel like an athlete, if you don't see yourself growing an athletic performance, it's really hard to believe that.
Interesting.
So
How champions think.
yes, thank you.
Tony showed the book. Thank you, Tony.
Thank you.
And by the way, we
guys.
have
See,
we
this
have
is why we
Tony
need
on
a
the
team
board
right here.
Actually,
this is what's happening to me all the
Teamwork
time.
makes the dream work.
Exactly.
I'm mid burpee, and all of a sudden I'm falling over, and this is how it's going. You see,
And we do have Tony on the board tonight. Usually it's Jarvis, but tonight we have like the big kahuna of the whole studio here with us tonight, Tony. So,
you see that.
it's always nice when you got the big kahunas with you.
Definitely.
So thank you, Tony. So also, we have a lot of eyeballs on Facebook Live, and just if you
I must
check
not
your name
activate it
in.
correctly.
No, it's
Just eyeballs?
people haven't been leaving comments. Usually we get a nice little smattering of comments.
Leave some comments.
Leave some comments. Ask a question. I swear
I
I'll.
mean, you're probably going to go there later, but I got to know what it was like to, D'ing up Derrick Rose up and down. I got to know. I got to know what practices were like at University of Houston.
So actually, that's.
Okay.
I'm curious too. What
Well,
was that like, Garrison?
Guarding Derrick Rose was about as fun as it was embarrassing. for
As any embarrassing
for those
experience?
of you who know who Derrick Rose is, he did win the MVP award in the NBA at age 23. So he was pretty good.
And I'm a Bulls fan, so obviously, yes, I know
there you
Derrick
go.
Rose.
But it was great, though. As tough as it was such an amazing experience being able to play with these guys that I knew were going to be able to play and be successful on the next level.
And what about you? Did you have aspirations, or what were your feelings about your basketball future?
I did. I mean, I think every college player has some sort of aspiration of becoming a professional athlete. As with most people, you just come to that realization that the odds of that happening is pretty low. And I knew that I still wanted to be involved in fitness and developing athletes, and that's what made me become a trainer, and it's worked out great.
But you did go on a little bit after college, right?
No, actually, after college, that was kind of the end of my basketball career. I mean, I played recreationally, played in a few leagues, but other than that, that was the biggest stage of basketball I had played on.
And so you must have been, a shooting guard then?
I was a point guard.
Point guard,
Mhm.
okay.
I
Wow.
was the shortest person on the team.
And how's that from like a psychological aspect, being the shortest person on the team, yet you're playing college basketball, so you were pretty damn good.
Right. It's challenging and it is intimidating at first, and then you think back. Well, I thought back, actually, and I remember that, I've always been one of the smaller players in the bunch. So that really didn't faze me too much. Once I got comfortable with the new teammates, I just kept the ball rolling. The sky was the limit from there.
But I imagine you must have faced a lot your whole life saying, you don't have a future in basketball, Garrison, you're too short. How do you overcome that?
I'm a pretty self-motivated person. People telling me I can't do something, it fuels me to do it even more. So I took those compliments and that negativity, and I made it into a positive thing. I kept that in my head in every practice, every workout, every game, and it worked out for me.
That's great. Dr. Richard, what do you tell someone that walks into your office, maybe like with a kid, because we talk about youth athletics a lot here, and they've got a kid who's maybe not 6'5" and prime for basketball, but he wants to play basketball. What do you tell them?
If a kid loves something, and to support him in doing it to the best of his ability, doubt and limitation comes, internally. So for me externally to tell them they cannot do something, unless that's some sort of reverse psychology, because like Garrison said, maybe it does motivate some people. But, I think if you believe that's who you are, now at some point you may decide, if you're in high school or whatever, that your body's more fit for a different sport, or you may go out and play with your friends lacrosse or baseball and realize that your body's better for that than soccer. But, let that journey be that child's journey. It's a lot different than if the parent is pushing a sport and the kid doesn't like it. So,
Right.
If you love it, you don't know when someone's going to grow. I think there's a guy on the Miami Heat right now. I think his name is Tyler Johnson. Just signed some. I think it's a 4-year, $60 million contract. So congratulations, Mr. Johnson.
There we go.
And he was undersized in high school. I believe he was 5'7", and he was known for the guy who would stay on the court with a knocked out molar.
Yep.
He would get he did not stop playing, and not that coaches loved that he was brutally getting beaten up, but that showed something, that he had a motor that didn't stop. And when it comes to adding value, even at the highest level of sports right now, they know, what? When we have a backup, somebody's injured, this guy's going to be on the roster full year, and he's going to be contributing. I'm sure he has, many other talents as a basketball player, but at least in recent coverage by, ESPN, it's unique, the value he's created for himself in that belief.
For sure.
That's amazing. And, before I was in a wheelchair, I was a quite athletic person and very competitive minded. And I know what it's like when you try to take things to the next level. Obviously, you know that greatly, Garrison.
Let's not underestimate it. You played quad rugby, Peter.
Well,
And-
I did
and
after
would
the
not-
wheelchair, right.
I would not get it. That is a scary. You are a
Yes.
brave man, and I would not try that against you. So.
But that being said, we like to dispense a lot of advice and inspiration and motivation. And we will be getting to the Richard Listens list of 3 right after this. Well, after 2 things. I also want to talk about American Ninja Warrior.
Yes.
But really quick, from a psychologist and from an expert fitness trainer, if someone's like, I don't have that edge, I don't know how to take it to the next limit, or, I don't know how to take it up to the next notch, what do you tell them? How do you motivate them?
Well, I feel like what holds a lot of people back from taking it to the next level is their fear of failure. And I tell people, don't be afraid to fail. I tell people, when I first started playing sports, I wasn't always the best. I wasn't always good. And you just have to push yourself. I mean, you set an attainable goal, whether it's easy or not. And, I mean, once you achieve it, you set another goal.
How about you, Dr. Richard? What do you tell people who aspire to take it to the next level but don't know how?
Well, I think Garrison touched on it. On a certain level, it's the whole Malcolm Gladwell, 1,000 hours of practice, and you can achieve mastery in almost anything. That when you take something and you're willing to practice at it, and that means when you're practicing, you're overcoming your fears and your doubts. So whether you be, Bob Rotella mentions a lot in his book, if you're a salesman and you have to make a certain amount of phone calls, you're going to have to. Right, you could be that person who, the middle of the day, says, "I gave a couple phone calls this morning," but your doubts started to take over, and so you checked email and you tell yourself, "Oh, but I got to work at 7 a.m." So you could be the person who's struggling, with your fears, but you're allowing them to push you towards staying at your own level, which I think is something that I did in high school with academic performance. You're comfortable at that level, even though it's good enough. It may not.
Right.
You don't know that it's not good enough for the next level, but you're afraid of that goal.
Right.
That I want to say, I want to be on a college basketball court. I want to be on a professional a stage as a golfer, for instance. And that means you're going to have to put in not only your own practice, but you may need to be aware of what are other people doing to prepare and practice. Are you willing to be shown things to learn and try them and do them, and embrace them? So. It's kind of like this Pandora's box. If you are willing to face fear and overcome limits, whether it be, jumping an extra inch in the air, or whether it be, lifting an extra 5 pounds, or whether it be that you can actually make a 3-pointer because people dare you to, and you're afraid of missing him in the big game, or taking it to the hole because you're afraid that you might be the one who has to make those free throws at the end. So you're going to practice those scenarios. So that a lot of rehearsal, a lot of different coaching in a variety of circumstances. And we're going to identify those fears and how they show up, because it's that's kind of a joke. I know I keep mentioning the book, but I've just completed it. Mother says to a sports psychologist, well, what were you doing for 2 hours with my son? And he talked about fear. She said, for 2 hours you talk about fear? He said, yeah, we talked about fear if it was raining outside and you're on the 18th hole. We talked about fear if you're down a few shots and you see the leaderboard. I mean, all the different. We talk about fear that you woke up with a cold on the day of the big tournament. I mean. So there's all these scenarios when people ask me, what's the goal of a sports psychologist? It's applying same emotional struggles, but it's tied into your performance and your belief about how you will perform.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's heavy.
Yeah, and so it's been great in a way. I'm getting a taste of my own medicine, because getting to work with with Garrison and studio, when people are having fun and can show you even when you're kind of frozen and you're shut down and you don't want to move and you don't want to do an action, that when you can tap back into doing something that's sports related to the thing you love, you slowly, it may not be there every day. It's not going to be there. After the tryout, I had a little letdown. I had a little it's like your identity, your goal is gone. I can't imagine what Olympic athletes who just fall short. And then you believe in yourself. Am I just fourth place? Am I not good enough? Should I go through this again? That you got to tap into whatever it was that excited you or felt good or confidence again, and start to enjoy it. So I was real grateful that they started to have me do some, crossover pivots like a big man in basketball would do in the lane, and tossing around the heavy medicine balls. Just practicing the motion basically of making a jump shot, weighted. So it gives you a chance to get back into that identity and get away from some of the negative experience of a recent, loss or perceived failure, which athletes can hang on to, in case of your old Cubs there, Peter, John Lester, we were talking about, and his throws to first base, where all of a sudden there's this, they don't even want to put him in the game with his runners on base because he does not trust himself.
Right.
This accomplished major league starter. So it happens to the best of us.
So we have about 8 minutes left of the show. Before we get to the Richard Listens list of 3, when I told a lot of my friends who our guest was on the show tonight, many were clamoring like, future American Ninja Warrior? Are you kidding me?
You should see him. If there was rafters here, he
right. We've
there.
got a shot of him up on rafters, but they are dying to know about this. So tell us, what is the story with American Ninja Warrior, Garrison?
Well, it all started with being a fan of the show. I don't know how many of you out there watch American Ninja Warrior, but it is insane. It's literally
crazy.
an extreme obstacle course run. And what got me inspired to do it was, again, just that athlete in me. After college basketball, after competing in men's physique competitions, I still wanted to compete in some form of fashion. And that just seemed like the right option for me. One, all the obstacles are amazing. I was a huge fan of the show. And again, it gave me a chance to compete at high level. It gave me a goal that I'm striving for. A lot of things that I look for in my workouts are purpose. With competing, it's a 12-week prep, so I knew by the end of that 12 weeks I needed to look a certain way. And it's been the same way with American Ninja Warrior. Granted, my hands are sore all the time, my forearms are shot. I lose myself in that training because I know I have a deadline and a goal to meet by that time.
And what is the goal? Like, are you on the show, or are you getting ready to audition, or what's
I'm getting ready to audition for the show, and the ultimate goal is to climb the top of Mount Midoriyama at the end of the season.
Wow. So do they have a course where you could train, or do you just have to simulate the course yourself?
Well, they have a few parkour gyms that have a few of the obstacles there. I've been fortunate enough to train with Flip Rodriguez, who's actually a part of Team American Ninja Warrior. He represents the United States. And they have some obstacles there at Tempest Free Running that he's helped me get some experience with. And I'm actually pretty confident in them now. I'm anxious to see what I do on the run.
And when is your audition?
It's looking like end of February, early March.
Pretty exciting.
Very excited.
Wow. So you might have to actually, as you prep for your American Ninja Warrior, as you are giving Dr. Rich so much experience and motivation and training, you might look to him now to kind of give you the psychological edge for that audition.
Yeah, definitely. I'd say this is the one of the biggest stages that I've performed on, it being a live show. And I'd love for Rich to give me some pointers on how I can just stay level-headed and not get caught up in all the crowd and the course itself, because it's real easy to mess up on these courses. It's all about your focus and how much you stay in tune with your body and the course you're on.
I know this is going to sound pretty bad, but if I was in your position, you know, the biggest thing I'd be worried about is that I would get there, I'm getting ready to do my thing, and then I would see like some hot girl in the audience, and like my mind would just like
Just go
go
elsewhere,
away.
huh?
It's like, how are you going to deal with that?
Right. I think right now the biggest fear for me is not completing this course when I know I have a lot of people out there that A, are either going to come and cheer me on, or B, watching on television. And I just don't want to let them down, because I know they're just as excited, if not more excited than I am for me to do this thing.
And Dr. Richard, just really quick, what advice do you give him about doing this extremely physical thing on TV? It's like, that's a lot of pressure.
Yeah, well, you want to, someone like Garrison who motivates himself and is constantly, pushing himself at so many levels. I think, you're right. It's more up against how is the actual, can you create the scenario where you're kind of blocking out as much as you can the distractions, like you mentioned, like you notice the attractive young person cheering for you, but you're focused in on your goal. You're not going to get distracted. But on the other hand, Garrison taps into something that's, I think he's learned about his own psychology, which is his responsibility to people that care about him. It's the athletes have a desire to please, and you want to perform for people around you. So, at some level, you do want to make other people happy. And I think we'd really want to just tap into that. He's making them happy just by being out there, just by being willing to even tackle something like that.
Totally.
And you don't want to get too busy associating your performance with results, because, right, the people that love you because, you're motivating, you're inspiring family and community and all the other people that you coach just by being willing to like even get on that stage.
Right.
And that's really where you want to keep the focus as much as you can. But it may get tough closer to game time.
And with that, we've only got a couple minutes left for the show. So I hate to jam the Richard Listens list of 3 into the last 2 minutes, but we're going to do it. The list of 3 is, I want to take 3 different angles to leave our audience with motivation. We're going to take it from a psychological level with Dr. Richard. We're going to take it from a physical fitness level from Garrison. And I'm actually going to chime in from an inspirational level of overcoming an extreme obstacle, like becoming paralyzed at 19 years old. So I'll go ahead and start just to lead the charge. Richard Listens list of 3. Number 1, on an inspirational angle, what I'll tell people is, when I first kind of like got up sitting in a wheelchair, the doctors told me, because I had such limited hand and arm function, that I would need to use a power chair for the rest of my life. But I was like, can I just sit in a manual chair? And they're like, oh, okay, And I got a manual chair that has these little pegs on the wheels, so that if you can't grip the wheel, you could use your palms and wrists to push. And I swear to God, the first day I sat in it, I could only push like 1 inch. And they're like, see? And I was like they said it negatively, like, see, you can't push yourself. I was like, didn't you just see that? I just pushed like 1 inch. And it's the old adage. I said 1 inch today, 2 inches tomorrow, and
Wow.
2 feet the next day. And I've been pushing for 30 years since. So my number 1 on Richard Listens list of 3 is the old adage, 1 inch today, 2 inches tomorrow. Always keep that in mind.
Yes, and you are an inspiration, Peter, and I would not be doing the show without you. So we do want to say thank you.
Thank you,
your
Dr. Richard.
inspiration is others'
Very
inspiration.
inspirational.
Yes.
And Garrison, how about you? How would you inspire from a fitness physical level?
What I would tell people is to find just that inner animal, find that mojo. Just think back to a time in your life where you felt great, things were going great in your life, and then think about the things you were doing at that time that made you feel that way. I know for me, when I'm feeling my best is after I just had an amazing workout. And you want to take that and make it a repeatable process.
Okay. And Dr. Richard, how about from a psychological level?
Yeah, well, mind body are very connected, so I'll try not to, borrow off Garrison's answer, but I want to identify, what are your positive beliefs about yourself? When did you feel best about yourself, and how do we get you, accentuating those qualities, and eliminating a lot of the negative thoughts that are in there that come up. You start to have a good thing. You start to, get fearful of an outcome, and what are these negative kind of self-defeating beliefs? So if we don't identify them, we can't overcome it. And also, like Garrison said, right, some people are really uncomfortable identifying they have this inner animal or inner athlete or, this anger or passion that needs to get tapped into. So we want to make that okay. It's okay to be really bright and really smart and really gentle and really kind and still have inner emotions that need to get channeled out through movement, sport, something where you're getting into that body and tapping into all of its strengths and all of its gifts. And I want people to have that and discover that for themselves.
I like that. That was a good Richard Listens list of 3. I think we left people with some good things to think about, to be motivated with, to be inspired with.
And we kept it to 3.
And we kept it to 3.
Yeah, we did.
Usually we forget how to count.
So we now have to wrap it up. First of all, I'd like to thank Tony for helping us engineer the show. And,
Tony.
of course,
Thank you,
though,
Tony.
the biggest props to our guest, Mr. Garrison Reese. Thanks for being
You.
here.
Thanks for having me.
And, Garrison, if people want to reach you, can they email you? They can reach you through Studio Jim.
Yeah, if you'd like to email me, you can email me at garrison@studiogems.com.
And Garrison is spelled interestingly, like you've been seeing on the screen, with an E and not an O.
It is. It's a little unique.
And as always, Dr. Richard, you could find him at richardlistens.com, facebook.com/richardlistens, and Instagram and Twitter at richardlistens. And any final notes, Dr. Richard?
No, I just want to say thanks. I can't wait to be there. Hopefully to support Garrison, and it's exciting. The exercises, the things he's doing, and both of you are inspirations to me, and I'm excited. Thank you for everyone who's been listening and been. Hope you're there to support all of our guests and their ventures as they
Definitely. And we'll definitely keep our audience abreast of his American Ninja Warrior travels.
Oh, absolutely.
And
I'd
journey.
love for all of you out there to come out and support me.
Yeah, since
And-
he's got me trying to jump to heights where I'm afraid of tripping over myself. So
And the Richard Listens show here on UBN Radio TV will be back Monday, November 28th, every other Monday night, like always. So thank you for joining us, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.
good night.
At the 20-minute point, there's always that thought in your head like, man,